But I think
you are here for a couple of years.
I'm too much of a journalist to be intelligence, yeah. But I'll just talk about what we're trying to do in Himal, which Kanak has already shared. That I think we have such a strong media in South Asia, but all the media really see and report from the nation-state perspective. And even though the South Asian cooperation has not taken off in a great way, the challenges that South Asia shares, it doesn't stop at the border. Whether we're talking about the environment or water sharing or landslides or violence, everything is so interlinked, and yet that is not the way it is being reported. So I think what we in Himal are trying to do is make these connections through our reporting and to reach out to journalists as well as scholars, because of course there is a lot of scholarship and academic research on South Asia, but most of it remains confined to academic papers with people talking to each other. I think all the issues being discussed here, for example, they don't really have a way of getting out into a wider public. So what we try to do in Himal is to take that scholarship, but we put in very intense editing to make it accessible to a wider public. And Kanak was also talking about how South Asianism is not happening in the local languages. So I think for a long time Himal has wanted to try and translate its articles and into the local languages, but we are an extremely small organization with a limited capacity. So what we have now decided to do is to offer our articles practically for free. It will not be free because I think anything free is not valued, but for a token payment to the vernacular press in South Asia, who maybe we hope to convince that they would have maybe half a page or a page of South Asian articles every month. So I would just like to invite everybody here to be in touch with us so that we can use your scholarship and ideas and give them the wider platform that it deserves.
Professor, okay.
Thank you. I think there is much time left, so I will be very brief, and I will take. I will begin with what Kanak said about the cultural and historical roots of the country. And that is a very interesting story, in fact. And not only Machendranath, but go beyond that, right from Arthurutta, Manjusri, the concept of Anastara, and many more things. And they have many things to share with India. And Nepal is, I don't know how many of us know that Nepal is a country where you will find a wonderful confusion, confluence of Hinduism
and confusion, which is nice. Which is a positive way, very positive.
Anyway, I don't want to say confusion. So, that confluence of Hinduism and Buddhism is something wonderful, and that brings India into. And what I'm trying to point out here is that there are strong cultural linkages, not only in India and Nepal, but even to Bangladesh and other countries of the region. But the unfortunate part is that the politics has always prevailed over these cultural connections. We hardly, care about what we have to share with, even with Pakistan, not to talk of Nepal or other countries. So one point which I would strongly advocate is that let us go back to these cultural connections and then try, not only at the people's level, because it is always there. We understand, even if you meet with our Pakistani friends, we say that we are the same. And more you go further of South Asia, you become closer. But that is not sufficient, because we know, we understand that we have not been able to do much out of this people-to-people connections. How to convert this connectivity, these connections with the political atmosphere is more important. Secondly, regarding, as you refer to the Indianness in South Asia, rather I would say, the Indo-centricity of the region. and it's a geopolitical reality. We can
Yeah.
So I will say that you see we have to live it, and more we try to understand this geopolitical reality, the more comfortable we will be. And my point here is that to what extent these smaller countries of the region are in a position to understand and take benefit out of India's vastness, the growing economy, the political stability, the democratic stability which is coming up. I mean, see, it is very easy to come into conflict because there are inherent reasons for the conflict. But can we convert these, issues into a cooperative framework is more important. Then, third point that I would like to touch upon, because we have been talking about democracy in South Asia during the last few days, and I have a strong opinion that though we have more than 6 decades now, but I strongly believe that still we are living with the borrowed concept of democracy. We do talk about, and there are layers of democracies, there are different systems, and we have always tried to legitimate every form of democracy in our Musharraf's democracy, King Mahendra's democracy, or Ziaur Rahman's democracy, and whatever. So,
Personalized democracy.
Almost.
almost, yes.
Baal, okay.
That is why we used to identify Professor Muni as expert of democracies in South Asia.
Yeah.
For him, Bhutan's democracy was different than Nepal's democracy and Sri Lanka.
Yeah, and there is a concept, many people talk about not democracy in South Asia, but they talk about democracies in South Asia. So that is there, but I'm not talking about that. What I'm trying to stress is that can we, with these kind of gatherings, can we revisit the whole notion of democracy in South Asia and then try to link up the localized concepts of democracy in the sense that let it be a democracy of Nepal, but can we bridge the vast gap between the political actors and the people at large? So that is my point. And lastly, coming to the SARC, before this all happened, we had done some homework, and I myself was associated with that. And I wrote, because I had for diplomatists. So I'm a great advocate of, and I have no, I have been saying it, and even in the other forums in Kathmandu for which I had in fact come, the consortium of Southasian think tanks. There also I advocated that let us have 2 foreign policies, 2 India's 2 foreign policies towards South Asia. There is no argument. Because what I am trying to say is that why other countries needs to suffer at the cost of India? Let us accept that if Pakistan advocates in the way that it has been advocating and what the Pakistani Prime Minister tried to pose in this argument, then in that case let us accept that we are not in a position to bridge our gaps, unfortunately, with Pakistan. Therefore, let us have a Pakistan policy and let us have a policy towards the rest of the countries in South Asia. And probably, I am happy to hear Prime Minister Modi that he said that if Pakistan doesn't come with us, we will go without Pakistan. And lastly, the point, because you also pointed out and rest of us are also concerned about, the point which has come up, and hopefully it will come up in a very large way, is the question of connectivity in South Asia. Because that brings together the whole concept of people-to-people relations in a more easy way. Thank you.
I just a quick response. The point that we made earlier about cultural linkages, how to bring them to the fore. I feel that your last point actually would make that happen, because 30 years in SARC, the attempt has been to say we all have similar paths, we are we're the same people, and therefore but the statism is so strong that it doesn't allow.
Yes.
So the only way to break it, and that's where I believe that this idea of connectivity is important, is if you develop economic stakeholders in each society, especially let us say Punjab, then when the next terrorist blast happens, the entire superstructure of this, composite dialogue will not collapse. So I personally feel that the time has come to actually either collaboratively or separately build constituencies in each country, so that there is and we must therefore utilize the business community for our purpose. Bangladesh is now importing 500 megawatts from India. It wants to import 1,000. Right? And by next 2016, India will be exporting 1,000 megawatt. Punjab wants 500 megawatt. It's all ready, but Islamabad is not allowing Punjab to buy from the Indian side. But that is still only bilateral. India vis-a-vis Bangladesh. I feel we must expand so that Nepal can sell to Bangladesh, because we sell to the Indian grid. India transfers it over, then it becomes South Asia. This is where I think there was a kind of a sort of a new thinking going on. You mentioned Modi's address yesterday, I did too earlier. I would say that we must make sure that that is turned not into a xenophobic anti-Pakistan bunching of the rest, but taking it the way I was suggesting earlier, that we go trilateral. And there, India then will have to put its money where its mouth is. Not just to say, I will make South Asia happen by selling to Bangladesh and to Nepal and to Pakistan. No, Nepal should be allowed to sell to Pakistan. And that's possible because I sell to Bihar, but then another part of the grid sells to Pakistan. That's how I think we should go.
Dinesh, briefly.
Thank you so much. I think there is South Asia is suffering from trust deficit and also democracy deficit, because there is a growing trust deficit in South Asia, and so things are not moving forward. So now how you can build South Asian identity, a common identity. So we have a long way to go, and for that region I think we need to first we need to, because state level things are not moving in that fast pace. But how at the civil society level, at the people's level, how you can connect, how you can enhance, because connectivity is a wonderful notion, but at the state level there is a lot of the ice is not melting. So at the civil society level, how you can enhance this connectivity. And how you can start the track to a multi-pronged diplomacy that is critically important. Because like like India and Pakistan, there are locked into some sort of hostility, and that's why the whole idea of SARC is became it's not very workable idea at this point. Look at other regional entities like European Union and even ASEAN. They are the workable things. They are even South Asian, even the European Union. They have even the common currency. At the same time, they have common court also. Even the European court has replaced even the local court also. Even there is a parliament also. So it's kind of distanding. The thing is that first of all, we need a vibrant civil society in South Asia, and we need to hold our actor accountable, because there is a deficit of democracy and our rulers are not accountable. And now, despite of all this resource base, South Asia is remain one of the poorest part of the world, one of the most impoverished part, and because of the states are not accountable, our rulers are not accountable. There is no genuine democracy, no participatory democracy. Democracy doesn't mean only a periodic vote, but there has to be genuine participation of the people, and voice of the common people need to be heard. But look at and the South, this South mechanism is so state-centric, and there is no mechanism within the South that civil society can articulate their agenda, their feelings, and So how to make, SARC, how to transform even the SARC, how to, because the charter, it's so, it was written into 25 years back. Now there was, vast change has been taking place, not within South Asia, but within the global politics also.
I was suggesting great.
Okay.
Background दे दिया अब आपका विचार
So what
नेपाल के गैंग दे दिया.
So what we need to do is that, how you can create, wider dialogue within the South Asian civil society, and we can create some sort of synergy. And since we can take advantage of, there is a growing civil society in the, country in the South Asia. So how we can build up a linkage? Because the state level things looks very hard, but at the civil society level, there is a, we can have, create an open and frank dialogue, and we can have some, what are the commonalities, what are the issues we can collaborate. The issue of climate change, even the democracy also, human rights also. We are also working on the issue of SARC regional human rights mechanism. I am a part of that process.
Please mention that.
Yeah. So I am part of that process. And this is the South Asia is the only region in the world which don't have any mechanism on human rights. European Union is a model, but even the South. African Union have also a regional mechanism. Even that is the most backward, part of the world, but they have regional mechanism. Inter-American, there is an Inter-American portal, but the South Asia is lagging behind. So because the rulers are we are talking about democracy, but if there is no rule of law and there is no guarantee of human rights, then democracy is not just casting a vote. So then the discussion is going on. Recently we had couple of meetings, even in Dhaka also, even the last SARC, during SARC, P-SARC also we had a discussion. So we can discuss around that issue. I think that will be also connect us. We can, and it's not going to happen overnight because this idea. But if you, at least we need to start a debate, and there are various issues which can be discussed around even the SARC mechanism also. SARC mechanism in human rights. And I think the SARC region should not be left behind in terms of democracy and in terms of human rights. And we need a genuine democracy in South Asia, accountable democracy, and without having civil society connectivity, we can't have this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yusufbhai, briefly your queries or observations.
2-3 questions about your discussion, sir. First one is your point about, just I want to know about, as you said that the role of Indian intelligence. My point is that how they are operating, is it visible or how they are manipulating things and how they want to influence things? Because in Bangladesh also we have such allegations, but India officially says they are not intervening. So how is it operating? Second point is the role of Indian Nepalese civil society. In case of Bangladesh, we have seen they are very segregated. They have very good affiliation with political parties, rather promoting national interest in this case. How Nepalese civil society is working
with the political parties.
How Nepalese are working? What is their relations with political parties? Last point is that you said that absolute majority in such decision making. What is the alternative? Because if you want to, majoritarian, if you want to say, but it has to be convenient for India as well as for Pakistan. Sometimes it may not be convenient for Bangladesh also. So what is the alternative of this?
Okay. One, intelligence. In Nepal, intelligence agencies, Indian intelligence agencies work so openly that they almost hand out visiting cards. Right? And that is not the problem of Indian intelligence. It is a problem of our politicians allowing our politicians, our politicians not having a sense of Nepal's history and possibilities, and being so crumbled like a shrinking violet, and being scared and going by, for example, rumors, and then rumors become reality because we are so weak. So that is because of the legacy. It was never this bad. It is the legacy of the war and the weakened politicians, and then in 2002. Yeah, the war, the people's, what I call people's war in quotes, because I don't accept that it was a people's war. It was a Maoist war, but therefore people's war in quotes. It all began in 2002 when the Maoists were, they professed themselves to be very anti-Indian.
Accepted or is armed conflict?
Armed conflict, but when the Maoists were very anti-Indian in public, but they wrote a secret letter to PMO New Delhi saying we don't mean any harm to you. So the PMO under Brajesh Mishra, who is the NSA, National Security Advisor, told the Maoists, "Likh kar de do ek khat to IB and RAW." So Bauram Bhatta and Pushakamal Dahal, the two chieftains, wrote letter to RAW and IB. Milna chahte hain, kya karon? So they met. And then thereafter writes the great S.D. Muni, Professor Saab, that it became easy for the Maoists to function in India. Then, of course, it helped to the extent that the 12-point agreement, the peace process, was assisted by these kind of contacts, no problem. But what happened thereafter is that the Indian intelligence continued its activism in Nepal under the peace process. That is where we have a problem, because in the beginning, I don't care, 8 people of Nepalis are dying, I don't care who we talk to, including RAW. But afterwards, once we have come back to Maoists have come to open society, they should have pulled back. We did not allow them to pull back. That is as much as I can say on the intelligence. It was put on the back foot only when Modi came here and re-established political linkages with the Nepali politicians. Because otherwise, Nepal's politicians had started working not even with the chief of RAW or the second man in RAW, but the third person, not even the station officer, who was niche. That is the level. So Nepal's politicians showed a complete lack of understanding of it. Because I'm not speaking as a nationalist. Let me tell you what I think. Nepal is very lucky in South Asia for having a sovereign status while being of that size, which is it has economy of scale. It can really do good to its population if we can make our own decisions and stick by them, bring peace and stability. So that is the idea. Your second point was?
Sir, civil society.
Civil society and links to politicians. Simply put, our civil society doesn't have a strong intellectual base, and the donor funding that has come with Nepal is an attractive place to fund. Nepal is exotic, it is Shangri-La in the perception. So a lot of Westerners come here and they mean good, but they provide so much money that our activism, civil society is meant to be proactive and genuinely activist. I believe that you can have NGOs that do some good work, but in the end, what you would call human rights as a proactive civil society should function on its own, rather than say, kahan paisa aa raha hai, and therefore will form an NGO around that topic. That is because of our weak intellectual base. We never had time to develop the base, and our civil society therefore either is identified with individual political parties, right, or it has gone into the NGO track. So today, I'll give you just one example and I'll end that question. Our feminists have all become gender workshop organizers. Okay? That is what happens when you have paisa from the top. So you need paisa, and I in all my work I use donor funding, but it's a question of whether you think about, even Himal is done with donor funding, but it's a question of whether you think of the idea first and then look for money, or whether you look for where the money is and then form a program. The last question?
Sir, absolute majority in decision making of SARC.
Okay, simply put, that SARC has this, not even absolute, but it's a consensus rule. It's not an absolute majority rule, right? So, I don't agree with the idea that SARC should deal with bilateral disputes, because that is so impossible that we don't even have to talk about it. It's like not bringing China as a member. It doesn't work, so you don't even think about it. But in many areas where you take the example of the Asian brown cloud, I don't know if you know the term. Everybody talks about climate change, but the reality is climate change is a more longer term issue. But the reason the glaciers are melting in Uttarakhand, Himachal, Nepal, Bhutan, Arunachal is because of the settlement of soot onto the glaciers, which then attracts energy, sun's energy, and melts the glaciers. So that is not something that will interest the Sri Lankan. But it should be a SAARC agenda, in my view. Now, how to make it a SAARC agenda? If you go by the SAARC rule, then Maldives and Maldives will probably agree because of the, but all countries should agree to it. It's very difficult. So my suggestion would be, we must find a formula where you can do South Asia related work without having to involve every country. Now people get worried about that if it means exclusion of some country. So that is why you've got to work on it. Like Modi's speech yesterday could very well be read as a without Pakistan hum sab log chalenge. I think that is a danger on the one hand. On the other hand, the SAARC formula also has not worked. That's why it's such an uninspiring organization. So it should be able to work with issues where, like on energy grid, if you have an energy grid between India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal and Bhutan, right now we say very artificially, oh, but then that is not SAARC. That is not, but I'll say distinguish between SAARC and South Asia. You can still call it South Asia. Let's have that distinction. And it's also a matter of nomenclature, I think. Sorry.
अरुण जी को शायद जाना आप queries, observations.
No, I feel that we have to have, strategy at different levels if we are talking about SAARC. Short term, medium term, and long term. Today we are in a world of globalization, and global influences are very strong in the entire area. And we are not only responding to each other, but we are responding to the global situation. And what SAARC needs to do is also to have a joint position vis-a-vis the international situations and the international issues, whether it be climate change, whether it be the nature environment, the World Bank, the WTO, etc. Because each one of them is affecting us much more strongly than within ourselves what we are affecting. That can be something on which we can arrive at an agreement more easily, because conflict amongst us is not so great on that. The second thing is, I think there's a change of consciousness in this entire region, which needs to be looked at also in a global perspective. In 1947, when India became free, the idea was from the national movement that the individual is not responsible for her or his problems, because the individual cannot tackle problems, poverty, illiteracy, ill health, etc. on her own. So the state was given a large role. And that, in a sense, characterized most of South Asia, including Sri Lanka and so on. But that position changed because we had a top-down approach, and that top-down approach also affected our democracy, or also affected our relationship in our politics and so on. Initially, with the national movement, the link with the people was closer, and that sort of separation grew. Corporate sector grew, corporate sector control also grew all over South Asia, and that has changed the attitude. With failure of policies, what has happened is we've turned our policies 180 degrees. Now that happened in, say, Sri Lanka in 1977, because one of my PhD students did a PhD on Sri Lanka's new economic policies, and I'm a little familiar with that, and I'm also a little familiar with Nepal, because two of my students have done PhD on Nepal. So in different periods, but what has happened is that now the individual is to blame, not the society. Therefore, society as a whole has decided that the collective is not that important. It's the individuals, the market is interviewed, and market is marginalizing, both at the global level as well as the national and local regions. So it's the domination of the market that has come to play a very large role, and consciousness is gripped very largely by this consciousness of the market. In this context, I think consumerism is playing a very powerful role, especially vis-a-vis the youth. And that's why the attraction to the West is very powerful, I think, all over South Asia. I see that here in Nepal as well as elsewhere. So, in some sense, the nature of policy making itself has changed, whether in India or Pakistan or in other parts, Nepal, etc., etc. So, how do we respond to some of these? These are long-term, medium-term, and also short-term. And this is where what I felt yesterday after seeing what was going on. I was not there directly, but what I heard on television, these divisions are not going to disappear quickly. But in the short run, can we think of areas like cooperation on education, health, other such areas which perhaps without the conflict that is there, which is political at one level, we can probably build more people-to-people link through collaboration in these areas.
But do you mean collaboration between states or collaboration between people, and what is the mechanism?
That's what needs to be worked out, because South Asia University, which was located in JU, has not quite worked. Unlikely that it will work, given the kind of disparate character.
There was one useful comment by Modi yesterday.
Oh.
Did you hear what he had to say?
No, I didn't.
We all agree. We are all part of the so-called townhouse meetings done by Gohar Rizvi,
Yeah.
where he had his own idea of a centralized university in Delhi because he wanted to be close to the Indian hierarchy. He's a Bangladeshi, right? So he created a centralized, and he didn't become vice chancellor. Manmohan Singh put his crony as a vice chancellor, who
Our
sadly
former
died.
vice chancellor,
Who sadly passed away recently. But what Manmohan Singh suggested yesterday, Modi suggested yesterday, was that South Asia University, as it is structured presently, is not appropriate. That it should have linkages with at least one university in each of the countries. So at least that is an attempt to correct the mistakes done in the past. Please continue.
But I guess he said there should be one university in each country.
He said to link up with one university, at least one, he said.
Yeah, at least one university in each country.
Yeah.
But also possibly that there should be one such South Asian university in each of the countries.
Yeah,
that would be a joint kind of.
Yeah, that will be very
No,
good.
he said
No,
a
what's
South-
happening is, what should have happened originally, sorry about this diversion, I apologize, is just that a South Asian university, to truly reflect the nature of South Asia with its diversity and depth and cross-cutting layers, is that there should have been many departments. It may have been difficult to do, but the department of anthropology could have been Tribhuvan. The department of economics could be Lums in Lahore, etc. Instead, they made a centralized university, gave it a lot of land, and they gave it $200 million, etc. So, hey, now that that's existing, the best way to recoup is the suggestion made that at least it should have links with, but now nobody has defined what kind of links.
So anyway, I mean, there could be a lot of ideas, possibly of time one could work it out, but like for instance in JNU now they're establishing virtual centers. Virtual centers interconnect various departments, through the net. So that is a possibility where today
I think that is
available.
yeah.
We can link up, sections and departments in different universities across the South Asian region. But what I'm suggesting is at least in these areas, perhaps there'll be less of a antagonism across nations. So we can begin, because these will establish people to people link, which in the long run may do something. Environment is a very strong area. All of us, as you said, ground cloud, what do we do about that? And I hope, we are able to agree on something on that. So,
And ground cloud is about to increase because Modi has opened up the floodgates for coal in India. When that happens,
and 100 megacities and many other things which are going to add to the kind of problems that we have. But without going into details, at least I'm just flagging a few issues. But at least let's establish linkages on these issues where people-to-people links build, and that may over the long period help in reducing antagonism. So that's a broad framework that I
yes, I think that's the way to go.
Asim, right?
I'm not sure how much I have to say, but a few comments and a few questions. I lived 10 years in the US, and I actually did not know the term South Asia till I started living in the US. Why I bring this up is because one reason why I think the concept or identity of South Asia may not be making sense to our leaders, let alone our people, is because it's an outside-in perception, and it's mostly out of the white man's imagination, if I may say so, without being derogatory about it. This is just a thought. I don't know if it is correct, but that is one possibility. Now, how do you make something which is outside in or which is abstract? How do you make it concrete? Because there is another sense in which, again, to use the word, in the civilizational sense, in which our geographies and our histories are interconnected. They're not the same, they're often not similar, they're often very dissimilar, but they are interconnected. We can't think of Afghanistan independent of Bangladesh or many, many things, in a way in which you can think of Afghanistan as distinct from Thailand, let's say. So there is clearly a line somewhere between Thailand and Bangladesh, which distinguishes South Asia from the rest. Likewise, in time, I think one can draw similar lines. So how does one make it concrete? That becomes the main question. I want to make two observations. One is that nowhere around the world that I have seen is there a democracy of cultures. We live with a modern state system which is extremely authoritarian and de facto totalitarian. I was talking about it yesterday.
Yes.
Building a smarter planet visions of democracy do not appeal to me because they're actually hiding a lot of totalitarian instincts and ambitions behind them. There is no critique from this part of the world of that vision, which from an ecological point of view to me is very obviously devastating. And the more we relate to each other as abstract entities as against concrete cultures, concrete communities, real people, the more likely it is that we will precipitate disasters for each other rather than bring each other any blessings. So therefore I look at the idea of cultural democracy and ecological democracy in an interlinked way. So what I try to argue is that actually one needs to think of a future world in terms of biocultural regionalism. Regionalism doesn't have to be parochial. If there is sustained dialogue, then that regionalism is constantly going to be cross-fertilized with different visions, different ideas, different imaginations, languages, and so on. So if we adopt that as a sort of broad framework, then one starts thinking in terms, for instance, of macroecological regions within South Asia. You think of the Himalayan region. The Himalayan region overlaps with at least 3 or 4 countries. How can that become the basis for the discussion of various issues around energy, protection of forests, water systems, etc. So, I mean, politically, it seems to me, by the time questions arrive in politics, it is often already too late. Questions need to precede politics. And there's too much of what one writer used to call seeing as the state. Too many people see things as though they are the state themselves. This is part of the contagion of the modern state as I see it. So one has to get out of that cognitive reflex and start thinking in terms of what do our communities really need? What is their vision? What are their dreams? And how are they to link with other communities? And what are the best forms in which that kind of communication can happen? So to get out of the state framework is I think extremely important. That's basically what
Okay.
I would say here right now.
Can I quickly respond? Sorry about that. Few words that you made have made it lots of stimulation in my mind for what you said. One is about the cultural biological communities and democracy. I can share with you exactly what happened, which may counter your own views on the Himalaya. Himal started as a Himalayan magazine. Why did we not stay with the Himalaya? Because we realized that the economic linkages, which are the drivers, are north-south rather than east-west. So Himachal actually does not interact with Uttarakhand that much. Uttarakhand with Nepal, Nepal with Sikkim, Sikkim with Bhutan, Bhutan with Arunachal, and onward. Maybe they should, but we tried it for about 15 years. We realized that we were increasingly being read by the Westerner who have this vision of the Himalaya, but on the ground where we live, the linkages are north-south. So we ourselves became a South Asian magazine from being a Himalayan magazine.
There's a very understandable reason for that.
Go ahead.
Because the Terai would trade with the highlands and
Yes,
so on.
yeah.
There would be
Where the people live and where they will interact, how they will interact with media, how they will do their politics, will not be east-west along the ridgeline, but north-south. That's the only point I'm making. Just that that may add some texture to your point. The other point about South Asia. South Asia is something that we have incorporated in our own vision because there is no other term. South Asia as a term indeed was born in American intelligence. After 1947 and the Second World War, when people looked at what was India, there was no India the way it was understood. Because there was a nation state of India, which because of the flick of the pen of Jawaharlal Nehru, Bharat took on the historical name of India, which is of the Indic civilization. Yes. So the rest of them are foundering with no access to their history, at least according to the English language and the Roman script. Pakistan is now suddenly feels uncomfortable to take on any term India or Hindustani music or whatever. So you needed a term even to identify the overall historical Indic civilization, which because today if you say India, we are all suffering. The people within India do not have to bother about it too much, and not even perhaps Nepal, because Nepal has the easy thing to say, oh, but we were never colonized, so we don't have to bother with these nomenclatures. But by and large, what was India is no longer India. So you need to say then what is the term we use for what was India? So with the ease with which in India, I read an article yesterday, somebody was talking about Indian history. Oh, William Dalrymple writing about these new frescoes in Ajanta, which have been discovered recently in the last outlook. And he talks about Indian civilization, and the average Indian will say, "Haan, ye to Indian civilization ho." But the average Pakistani, that term itself makes him distance. So, or the Bangladeshi, you will say Bangladeshi less so, but still Bangladeshi. Whereas now you have to use the term South Asian, you want to include the Bangladeshi and the Sri Lankan. And so this is why I think we are forced to accept a term that was inherited. So what did we do in Himal? Understanding that fact, and also understanding that we're still talking only in English. That itself is a problem. But still, in talking in English, writing in English, we decided, at least to address the point you made, we decided to write the two words as one. To say that at least in Himal we write South Asia not as a geographical term, which is rather distance from your own being, whereas India or Bharat or Hindustan or Jammu Dweep, all is part of our historical understanding of ourselves. We say at least if we connect it, we create a sort of a ripple there of identity that it is not geographical. And the same way, if you ask me in future, if we really are successful in integrating discussion of South Asia in the vernacular languages all over, then when you write Dakshin Asia in Hindi or Nepali or Bangla, it should be joined. Just to give a sense of ownership to something that was important, but we need it today, is all I'm saying.
Just to add,
Go ahead.
you know, this is the concept of South Asia is basically the Cold War US strategic perspective. And they reorganized the whole world in terms of different regions like Southeast Asia, West Asia, and so on. And so that way the South Asia came up, and only because we did not have any common element on the nomenclature. Secondly, there was a long debate, right since 1945 to 47, even in Chicago School of Politics, that what should be the geopolitical area of South Asia. And many scholars, including, I remember this fellow Rudolph. In fact, at one stage they said to me that you try to redefine the director of South Asia. But I could not do that. But there was a long debate that Afghanistan and Burma, they should also be part of South Asia, because there is cultural, geographical, and all factors are there, even historical. But it did not suit the American strategic interests, because there was West Asia and there was Southeast Asia, and there were vital links to all these regions. Therefore, they were excluded. That's what
I want to slightly correct you. As you said that there is no interaction between Himachal and Uttarakhand. I think that is partly right and partly wrong.
Yeah.
Uttarakhand is divided into three regions: Garhwal region, Kumaon region, and you can, if you can include this tri region also.
Yeah.
Kumaon, Garhwal, and tri region.
Okay.
Whereas Himachal is concerned, I am from Himachal.
That's what I'm
working in. Whereas Himachal is concerned, that is more related with the Garhwal region, and we have rotated relationship with Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and Garhwal.
Economic.
Yes. Here in Kumaon region, we have rotated relationship with Nepal, and even Trai region is also very much that is the population shift from the Uttarakhand hilly area to Trai region.
Okay.
This is my solution.
All right. I'll mull over it and get back to you, because maybe what I was saying was something in the modern economic sense, roti beti ka sambandh hai, lekin as the modern day economy picks up, how much of modern economic linkages are happening that way, and how much of it in relative terms is happening to the south with Punjab or with Himachal? That's fine. But maybe there's some point in between. Maybe I didn't also, I'm not a scholar, so maybe I wasn't too clear in what I was saying. But I get an instinct that
modern scholar.
no, my instinct is simply this: that the modern economics, how much of what you are saying continues, whereas historically, of course, Nepal, far west Nepal, what we call far west Nepal, which is a misnomer, West Nepal, used to be linked with Kumaon quite deeply, but increasingly there is a lot of migration through Kumaon.
Yes.
But that's about it. But right now, when West Nepal looks to a future, it is looking at a future through Dhangadi into New Delhi, not into Kalmara. That's all I'm saying. But
presently, I am located at Indo-Nepal border, that is called Banwas. Where I was sharing with Tripathi yesterday that more than 3 lakhs migrants, they pass through Banwas border.
Right.
So
To Delhi.
but where do they go is my question.
Yeah, most of them they go to Uttarakhand and Himachal
Pahad,
Pradesh. Yeah, Himachal Pradesh is also when the apple plucking season is there.
Okay.
Most of them they go to Himachal.
Okay, I stand corrected.
I just want to quickly flag 3 points from the South Asian perspective. One is, you see, we have this SARC here and we have the People's SARC. But unfortunately, I see very little connect and linkage between People's SARC and SARC. I also have this opportunity of being involved with G20 also with your program and others. And there, there is an official connect.
Sorry for the interruption. The proposal of connectivity has been rejected by Pakistan.
Which connectivity?
The issue that was coming up in Assam.
No, I'm not talking about that.
Civil society and
civil society.
I was just referring to connectivity.
Rejecting is a very harsh term. I would say that Pakistan decided that it was not ready.
Yes, they have not done sufficient
homework. But reality is, Nawaz Sharif is very weak within Pakistan vis-a-vis the military. He is not able to. So if the powers in Delhi do not understand that, then we are not going to the depth of SARC is all I'm saying. Yeah.
Yes, you see, when I was talking about connectivity, it was connectivity between civil society and official SARC.
Yeah.
So there is hardly anything much. And I think because you are in a privileged position near, very close to the SARC secretariat and all that, and I think this time I'm informed that there is some social committee which was formed for the first time within SARC. So if this social committee can be strengthened a little bit more and can be given a proper nomenclature, where, just like it happens in G20 and in Chogam and other such bodies, where just before the summits, there is a consultation and the declarations are officially shared with the official bodies, so that they can consider or not consider what it is. If we can work on that line. Second thing which I would like to point out is about this whole thing of, you also mentioned about this whole process of SARC and the other things not becoming a political agenda. See, unfortunately, that is the whole problem. Our foreign relations are not a political agenda in any of the countries. That's why our organization has tried to form this Center for People's Foreign Policy in South Asia, which I mentioned. So here, basically, I think we have to try and see how we can get the people to understand the importance of foreign policy and assert themselves all through SARC. And finally, about democracy, because there's been some discussion around that, and I think Nepal is on the threshold of defining itself constitutionally, politically. See, I have the thesis, I have also written an article titled Reinventing Indian Democracy from Subject to Citizen. And I think this applies to the entire South Asian. Although we have called ourselves democracy for the last 60, 70 years, but our mindsets are still that of subjects. Like, in a kingship and all that, where we go and plead for favors. And then it has not become, and it applies to everybody, right from the poorest and the most illiterate to the most educated and the most rich. So it's not, we go with pleading for favors and not demanding entitlements of citizens. So I think until and unless we can change this mindset of the people, work towards changing this mindset of the people, irrespective of what we put in our constitution, that's not going to happen. And I think because this whole problem is common to the entire South Asian region, I think if we can collectively look at it and address it, I think the core of democracy is where people decide what is to be done. And it is the responsibility of the elected representatives and the government officials to implement the decisions of the people. I think in the entire South Asia, what is happening is people are given at most one occasion once in 5 years to decide, to vote. After that, all the decision making is appropriated, and the deciding factor for everything, from the local road that is to be laid to international treaties, is being done only by the politicians and bureaucrats. I think until and unless we can challenge this, I think we are not doing anything.
I think how can people get a handle on foreign policy as important to them? I think that's in the SARC level. I will just make this extra point that if the people in SARC and the government were to understand that South Asianism, if one way to use that term, it's very difficult, as you were saying, it can actually benefit because it will lower the level of tension and it will lower the level of militarism. The latest issue of Himal is on the militarism in South Asia, including India, which is seen as a democracy. The suggestion is that it is highly militarized. So, if you reduce the level of militarism, there will be the peace bonus. In that peace bonus, the people who will benefit are the people who live in the most highly dense region of South Asia, which is the Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra corridor. So we use a term called the arc of poverty, which is Bangladesh, go on an arc, Bengal, Assam, Nepal, Bihar, Eastern UP, you can skip Western UP and Haryana and Punjab and go down into Rajasthan and to Sindh. This arc of poverty can be tackled by South Asian regionalism. I would like to end by saying that we have to distinguish between SARC and South Asia. And that's in a way, therefore, for me, the People's SARC, I suggested earlier, I may be wrong, but People's SARC also functions by thinking of ourselves as Pakistanis and Indians and Bangladeshis needing to get together. That will go to a distance, but you need more than that. So perhaps we also must, even while we say SARC, we must mean South Asia.
Sudha, last word. Unless any, Guman Singh Ji has been very close to some of the intellectuals who are seen as friends and mentors by Maoists. But he himself is ex-CPI and now independent left, and we work together on Himalayan Niti Abhiyan. So he needs to come when you have more time and discuss Himalayan issues in depth.
I'm so independent left.
Yes.
Left as a very broad spectrum.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sudhari?
Thank you for really a very good analysis, and also making us to understand the depth of certain issues of what is SARC and what is South Asia. That's very important to think. Generally, we use kind of interchangeably, like SARC as well as South Asia. And what I see, yes, as I say, more than SARC, it is South Asia what we really need to address any kind of issues which we are going through, whether it's a political, social, ecological, economic, these things. So this is, then we need a kind of a broader vision to draw into, use to that into our policies. Whether how we could do that, probably think tanks could help in that way. Going beyond SARC. So whether we need that kind of a perhaps new vision which could be drawn into the charters, or okay, now we have a SARC charter or some social charter. Yes. But whether we can revisit to these things and redefine and bring it to a new perspective. Of course, how this is going to help, because again we have to work on that. But at least basic, this is what we want. This is what actually going to be in for the future. Not only for the present generation, for the future generation, where this all integrated holistic approach just being there culturally, spiritually, economically, and both all these aspects we brought. Whether we could revisit into these things and bring something new from this.
Thank you. धन्यवाद देके खत्म करें अगर आपकी इजाजत हो.
After you are our elder, कुछ शब्द के
volunteer chairperson.
हाँ, volunteer chairperson. Say a few words. Thank Buddha for bringing us together. It's all कहो और बंद करें. It's all कही.
नहीं कही more intimate.
Professor Sahab, executive chairperson.
Just I observe word now.
थैंक यू. दोस्तों जो सब हमने सुना उस पे तो कमेंट करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. उसके आगे इट वॉज वेरी इंस्पायरिंग जिस तरह से आप दोनों ने बात रखी और जर्नल के बारे में. तो मैं चाहूँगा कि सैडेड नेपाल के हमारे साथी जो हैं उद्धव जी, वो जो मैकेनिकल जिंदाबाद मुर्दाबाद वाला एक्टिविज्म है उसको पहले भी वैसे कम करते हैं और थोड़ा ब्राह्मणिक एक्टिविज्म ज़्यादा करें. और जो आप बार बार कह रहे हैं कि एक इंटेलेक्चुअल हार्डवर्क की ज़रूरत है, तो एक एनेबलिंग फ्रेमवर्क के लिए हम लोग एक ऑनलाइन जर्नल की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. इट्स कॉल्ड ecological-democracy.net. तो थोड़ा इंफॉर्मेशन एक्सचेंज ये हिमाल ज़्यादा पढ़ें, उसमें कंट्रीब्यूट करें और दोनों जर्नल्स को लिंक करने में मदद करें. ये हम मतलब वी कैन थिंक ऑफ सम इनोवेटिव वेज कि रादर देन पुटिंग बिफोर ऑनलाइन. हाँ वही नहीं, बट somebody has to be the link. I was thinking of same people, yeah, and not just in this room. He has developed a good network in India and in Nepal experts, South Asia experts. तो उन सब
This couple is JNU's gift to Nepal.
नहीं, ये लोग they are hard working, and while in JNU they kept their roots intact.
Yes, of course.
और यहाँ दोनों जो नेपाली में भी और अंग्रेजी में दोनों लगातार लिखते हैं और मुश्किल समय में भी लिखते थे. जब लोग साफ बात कहने में जब मुश्किल होती थी तब लिखते थे और बाद में लिखते थे.
पहला एक्सपोजर वो कैंटोनमेंट के समाचार से तो मैंने इसी के वजह से हमारा
तो उस काम को और आगे बढ़ाना चाहिए. और सैडेड का जैसा हिंदुस्तान में हम चाहेंगे कि आप सैडेड के मार्गदर्शन में आप खुद और आपकी टीम ज़्यादा मदद करें. अभी हम लोगों ने एक इंटरनल मीटिंग की थी, तो इट्स ए वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग जर्नी कि जो एज कुक ज्वाइन किया वो हमारा चीफ अकाउंट्स ऑफिसर है, एंड लाइक दैट इन 10 years कई तरह की जर्नीज. और उसमें स्टाफ उसका एक छोटा कंपोनेंट है. मेंटर्स और रिसोर्स पर्सन 2 लोग तो यहाँ नहीं, अपने असीम जी और प्रोफेसर अरुण कुमार, और वॉलंटियर जो करते हैं लीडर नॉन स्टाफ ढंग से भाई तेज सिंह जी हैं. गांधीयन और सर्वोदय आंदोलन में गहरा ताल्लुक है. इंडिपेंडेंट लेफ्ट के माइंड मिनरल पीपल और कई तरह के इकोलॉजिकल मूवमेंट में गुमान सिंह जी से भी नहीं. तो उस तरह का एक तो बड़ी बिरादरी अब सैडेड की बन सकती है. और उसको सैडेड के ही नाम से नहीं, जो अपना ओवरऑल जो साउथ एशियनिज्म है उसी के हिसाब से हम करें. और इस बार कुछ ऐसा लगा कि कुछ क्लिक कर गया उप्रेती जी और हमारे में दोनों
बहुत दिनों से नहीं हो रहा.
बहुत दिनों से फिजिकल कांटेक्ट नहीं हो रहा था, टेलीपैथी की था. तो इसके लिए, और जो कल इन्होंने शाम को हम लोग रोज मिलते थे कूल कैफे में, कूल शेफ. तो वहाँ कल इन्होंने जब रखा हैंग आउट का आइडिया, मेरे से पहले डिस्कस करने लगे कल सुबह ब्रेकफास्ट. मैंने कहा नहीं अभी नहीं, पूरे ग्रुप में रखिए आप. तो there was so much of excitement. Many people have volunteered, some to him directly, some to me. कि हम लोग इस आइडिया को मिलके करेंगे। और उसमें मुख्य हमारा ये है कि यंगर जनरेशन जो कन्वर्टेड नहीं है और जो एनिमी कैंप इनको बॉर्डर पे है, और हमारी बात, और इसका तरीका ये होगा कि हम लोग ज़्यादा नहीं बोलेंगे इस साउथ एशिया हैंग आउट में, क्योंकि हम बोलेंगे तो फिर वो टिपिफाई हो जाएगा, स्टीरियोटाइप लैंग्वेज हम बोलेंगे। तो नए लोगों से, यंग लोगों से साउथ एशिया हैंग आउट में हम लोग कोशिश कर रहे हैं। We'll take back seat, but we'll continuously do it and try to expand it. और साउथ एशिया हैंग आउट की तरह साइबर स्पेस में coupled by print and other mediums and even smaller public meetings जैसे होती थी, प्रभात फेरियाँ होती थी इंडियन फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल में, तो वो जो चीज़ें हैं उनको छोड़े बगैर नई चीज़ों को इनकॉर्पोरेट किए हुए हम करेंगे। और मैं क्या क्या कोऑपरेशन की और जर्नी टुगेदर की पॉसिबिलिटीज़ हैं उन सब के बारे में मैं अभी नहीं कहना चाहूँगा। इतना ही कहूँगा कि जैसे असीम भाई अगर बहुत लिखते हैं लेकिन सिर्फ हमारे लिए नहीं लिखते, तो उसका फिर हम ऐसा करेंगे कि जैसे जब हम अपने लिए लिखवाएंगे तो बिफोर वी पुट ऑनलाइन फर्स्ट एडिट विल सेंड इट टू यू, एंड इफ यू कैन यू वांट टू यूज इट देन उसके बाद वी पुट इट ऑनलाइन, तो वो जॉइंट एक तरह से हो जाएगा हिमाल से थिंग। तो इस तरह के कुछ क्या क्या कोलैबोरेशंस वर्कआउट हो सकते हैं। और आप तो बिना पासपोर्ट के ऑन अराइवल वीजा मिल जाएगा आपको पाकिस्तान। हाँ, एज नेपाली आप साउथ एशियन नेस को बहुत असर्ट मत कीजिएगा, नहीं मिलता है।
आपको पासपोर्ट मीडिया लिखा है?
नहीं, बिना मीडिया के मिलता है। He has traveled there।
मीडिया को नहीं मिलता है,
मीडिया को जरूर मिलेगा।
Anyway, तो मेरा ये सुझाव है कि दिनेश जी, कनक जी और उद्धव जी, they should set up a team together of Nepalis on behalf of South Asians। और पाकिस्तान में ये सब जो अपने इकोलॉजिकल डेमोक्रेसी, कल्चरल डेमोक्रेसी, बायो रीजनलिज्म, इन सब आइडियाज़ पे वहाँ क्या अपने को रेजोनेंस मिलता है। हम लोग वहाँ सिंध में, बलूचिस्तान में, पख्तूनख्वा में जो नॉर्थ वेस्ट फ्रंटियर था पुराना, और पंजाब का इंडिपेंडेंट लेफ्ट, पाकिस्तानी पंजाब का, वहाँ सब जगह इन आइडियाज़ को रेजोनेंस है। और टेररिज्म का भी इंटरप्रिटेशन उनका सिर्फ कॉन्स्पिरेसी थ्योरी नहीं है। ISI, CIA, yes, they were there in constructing this, but now it has gone beyond that, and there are other socio-cultural reasons which only a deep and a nuanced discourse can take care। Clash of Civilization के मुकाबले हमने काउंटर डिस्कोर्स को खड़ा नहीं किया है। आइडेंटिटीज कैसे कंस्ट्रक्ट करनी है विदाउट इन्वोकिंग आइडेंटिटी एंजाइटीज ऑफ नेशन स्टेट, वी स्टिल कैन ट्रांसेंड दैट। फाटा रीजन में ये बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है, तो उसके लिए यू हैव टू टेक द लीड। बीइंग एक्स establishment and now dissenting establishment।
See what he got into?
Right. So you are in the right, cultural, political location, and you lead the delegation on behalf of other South Asians, only of Nepalis, and that should be South Asian delegation।
लेकिन मैं नेपाली नहीं हूँ ना, मैं तो साउथ एशियन हूँ।
हाँ, नहीं, only of accidental Nepal।
लोकल से शुरू करना है ना।
नहीं, पाकिस्तान वाला ये अगले 3 महीने में घूम के आए, और हम लोगों को वीजा दिलाएंगे तो हम भी साथ जाएंगे, वो नहीं मिले तो भी जाएं, ऐसा हमारा आग्रह। एडिटर साहब जाएं, आप दिनेश जी को ले जाएं, आप जाएं। उप्रेती जी का जो क्लाउड है तो ही विल गेट वीजा, नॉट अस। तो
छोटा सा इंटरवेंशन, ये मैं बात किया हूँ कि जो सार्क का ऑफिशियल जो डिक्लेरेशन है जो भी आता है, आज शाम में शायद वो आ जाएगा, उसका जो है हमें 3 महीने के बाद सब मिलकर, जैसे पाकिस्तान में ये देखे उसका एक क्रिटिक करते हैं और उसकी मॉनिटरिंग प्रोसेस लगाते हैं, तो शायद तो कुछ
क्रिटिक क्या उससे एंगेज किया जाए। और जितने यहाँ पीपल्स आर्क में वो विज्ञापन के तौर पे छपा था फार्मर्स का, आपने देखा होगा काठमांडू पोस्ट में फ्रंट पेज पे। तो इस तरह के सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स if they can't find place in your magazine constraint of space, then at least a comment about them, all the documents जो आए हैं वो, और हम लोग भी अपने इंडिया में उनको ओन करते हुए आगे लेके जाना है। I know the limitations you mentioned about feminist in Nepal, we suffer much more there. हमारे यहाँ depoliticization बहुत ज़्यादा है, thanks to NGO.
आपके depoliticization है, हमारे यहाँ funding है. In thanking everybody, let me just suggest to you that I'm very sorry that the one person who could have added to our discussion, because he's a theoretician, is our chairman of Himal, and happens to be the person who Uddhav had called originally, Hari Sharma ji.
Not originally, आप दोनों को बुलाया था भाई।
नहीं, मैं तो आया। He could have added, for example, to your question or to the point made about Himachal and Uttar Pradesh. He has that background. I don't have enough of it, but I'm sorry. But another time we'll make sure that he's also present. Thank you all.
Thank you.